Most people believe their life is difficult because the world is unfair. They think the economy is unpredictable, opportunities are limited, other people are unreliable, and success depends on timing, luck, or circumstances they cannot control. But the truth is far less comfortable than that. The real reason most people feel exhausted, frustrated, and stuck is not because life is hard. It is because they are trying to control things that were never theirs to control in the first place. Think about how most people approach their goals. They try to control the results. They try to control how quickly things happen. They try to control how other people respond to them. They try to control every variable, every outcome, every reaction. And the more they try to force life into their expectations, the more resistance they encounter. This is where the frustration begins. A person spends years chasing a promotion and becomes miserable because it does not arrive when they expect it. Someone pours all their energy into a relationship and becomes anxious because they cannot control the other person's feelings. An entrepreneur builds a business but loses sleep every night trying to predict every possible outcome in the market. What they all have in common is not bad luck. It is a misunderstanding of how life actually works. Jim Rohn once said that the major key to your better future is you, not the economy, not the government, not the company you work for, you. Your philosophy, your mindset, your discipline. And this is where most people miss the point entirely. They believe success comes from controlling external results. In reality, success comes from mastering internal discipline. Life does not respond to pressure. Life does not respond to desperation. Life responds to alignment. It responds to the kind of person you become and the standards you live by every single day. This is why two people can live in the exact same world but experience completely different lives. One person feels constantly stressed, chasing results that never seem to arrive fast enough. The other moves with calm confidence, focusing on their actions, their growth, and their discipline, trusting that the results will eventually follow. The difference is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is philosophy. Most people try to control life. The few who succeed learn something very different. They stop trying to control everything outside of them and start mastering everything inside of them. And that shift changes everything. Now, once you understand that trying to control everything leads to frustration, the next question becomes much more important. If life does not respond to force, then why do so many people still live this way? Why do so many intelligent, hardworking people still feel stuck, stressed, and constantly dissatisfied with their progress? The answer is surprisingly simple. Most people have been taught to focus on the wrong thing. From a young age, society conditions people to obsess over results. We are told to chase the grade, chase the promotion, chase the income, chase the recognition. The entire system is built around outcomes. And because of that, people grow up believing that the secret to success is simply to push harder toward those outcomes. But Jim Rohn often warned about this exact mistake. He explained that results are never the real starting point. Results are the end of a chain reaction. And that chain reaction always begins with philosophy. Your philosophy shapes your attitude. Your attitude shapes your actions. Your actions shape your results. Most people skip the first step entirely. They become obsessed with results while completely ignoring the philosophy that produces those results. Imagine a farmer who walks into his field and demands a harvest without planting any seeds. It sounds ridiculous when you say it that way, but this is exactly how many people approach their lives. They demand success without building the mindset, discipline, and personal standards required to produce it. And when the results do not appear quickly enough, frustration begins to grow. People start to feel like life is unfair. They blame the market, they blame the economy, they blame their circumstances, but very rarely do they step back and examine the philosophy guiding their actions. This is the real problem. Not a lack of opportunity, not a lack of talent, a lack of the right internal framework. People try to control the wrong variables. They obsess over results that are influenced by thousands of factors outside their control while neglecting the few things that are entirely within their power: their discipline, their focus, their standards, their daily habits. Jim Rohn used to say that if someone handed you $1 million today but did not give you the mindset required to manage it, you would likely lose it within a short period of time. The external reward without the internal structure eventually collapses. This is why chasing outcomes often creates anxiety rather than progress. When your happiness depends on results that have not yet arrived, you place your emotional stability in something unstable. You begin measuring your worth based on things that are constantly fluctuating. One day you feel successful, the next day you feel like you are falling behind. But the truth is, success was never meant to work that way. Success was never designed to be a feeling that appears only after a result shows up. It is a byproduct of the person you become through discipline and growth. Once you understand this, the entire game changes. You stop obsessing over whether things are happening fast enough. You stop comparing your timeline to everyone else's timeline. You stop trying to control every external factor. Instead, you begin focusing on something far more powerful. You begin focusing on building the kind of philosophy that naturally produces results over time. Once you understand the real problem, the next step is to understand the principle that solves it. And this is where Jim Rohn's philosophy becomes incredibly powerful. Because he did not focus on quick tricks or temporary motivation. He focused on something much deeper, the internal structure that determines the direction of a person's life. Jim Rohn believed that the most powerful force shaping your future is not your circumstances, it is your philosophy. Your philosophy is the way you interpret life. It is the set of beliefs that quietly guide every decision you make, every habit you build, and every action you take. Most people underestimate how powerful this is because philosophy is invisible. You cannot see it directly, but its effects show up everywhere in your life. If someone believes life is unfair, they will approach challenges with frustration and resistance. If someone believes opportunities are limited, they will hesitate to take risks. If someone believes success happens only to lucky people, they will never fully commit to improving themselves. The philosophy becomes the filter through which they experience everything. Jim Rohn explained it very simply. He said, your philosophy determines your attitude determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. This means the results people chase so desperately are actually the last step in a much deeper process. They are not the starting point, they are the outcome of a long chain of thinking, behavior, and discipline. Think about two individuals facing the exact same challenge. Both encounter setbacks in their career. Both experience rejection and uncertainty. On the surface, their situations are identical, but their philosophies are completely different. One person interprets the setback as proof that life is working against them. They become discouraged, frustrated, and eventually stop trying. The other person interprets the setback as feedback. They see it as a signal to improve their skills, strengthen their discipline, and refine their strategy. Same situation, completely different outcome. The difference was not talent. It was not intelligence. It was philosophy. Jim Rohn often reminded his audience that success is not something you pursue directly. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And the person you become is shaped by the philosophy you live by every single day. If your philosophy is built around impatience, comparison, and external validation, your actions will always feel reactive and unstable. You will constantly chase results and constantly feel pressure when those results do not arrive fast enough. But when your philosophy shifts toward discipline, growth, and personal responsibility, everything changes. You stop measuring progress only by outcomes. You begin measuring progress by the person you are becoming through the process. This is why Jim Rohn emphasized personal development more than almost anything else. He believed the most important project you will ever work on is yourself. Not your job, not your business, not even your goals, yourself. Because when the internal structure becomes stronger, the external results eventually follow. Your philosophy shapes your attitude. Your attitude shapes your actions. Your actions shape your life. And once you truly understand this principle, you stop chasing life in desperation. You start building a philosophy that naturally creates the life you want. Now, once you understand the principle that philosophy shapes your life, a very important question naturally appears. If the idea is so simple, why do so many people still struggle for years without making real progress? Why do intelligent people with talent and opportunity still feel stuck in the same patterns? The answer is that most people are not failing because they lack effort. They are failing because they are applying effort in the wrong direction. They chase results instead of building the person capable of producing those results. Jim Rohn often used the analogy of farming to explain this mistake. A farmer does not wake up in the morning and demand a harvest. A farmer understands there is a process. First, the soil must be prepared. Then the seeds must be planted. Then the crops must be watered and protected. Only after that process does the harvest appear. But most people reverse this order in their own lives. They want the harvest first. They want success, recognition, income, and achievement before they have developed the discipline and philosophy required to sustain those things. And when the results do not appear quickly enough, frustration begins to grow. Instead of examining their philosophy, people start looking for shortcuts. They jump from strategy to strategy. One year they chase one opportunity, the next year they chase another. They move constantly, but rarely move forward. Jim Rohn warned about this pattern many times. He explained that success is not something you chase by constantly changing direction. Success is something that grows naturally when the right disciplines are practiced consistently over time. But consistency requires patience, and patience is something many people struggle with. We live in a culture that rewards speed. Everything is instant. Information is instant. Entertainment is instant. Communication is instant. Because of this environment, many people begin to expect their lives to move at the same pace. They expect results immediately. If progress is slow, they assume something must be wrong. If success does not arrive quickly, they begin to doubt themselves. And once doubt enters the picture, discipline begins to weaken. This is where many people quietly abandon the very habits that would have eventually led them to success. Another reason people fail is that they focus their energy on things outside their control. They worry about what other people think. They constantly compare their progress to someone else's progress. They spend hours thinking about circumstances they cannot influence. All of this drains their mental energy without creating any real progress. Jim Rohn explained that maturity begins when a person takes full responsibility for their own life, not partial responsibility, full responsibility. That means understanding that your future is not determined by what happens to you, but by the way you respond to what happens. This shift in thinking changes everything. When people stop blaming circumstances, they begin looking inward. They start improving their skills. They refine their habits. They strengthen their discipline. And slowly, almost quietly, progress begins to appear. The truth is that failure is rarely dramatic. It does not usually arrive in one sudden moment. Instead, it shows up through small daily decisions, small compromises in discipline, small delays in action, small excuses repeated over time. But the opposite is also true. Success is not one giant breakthrough. It is the accumulation of small disciplines practiced every day. And this is exactly where the next step becomes critical. Because once you understand the mistakes that hold most people back, you can begin building a structure that guides your actions in the right direction. That structure is what Jim Rohn often referred to as a personal framework for life. Once you understand why most people fail, the next step becomes clear. You cannot simply rely on motivation or occasional bursts of effort. If you want lasting progress, you need structure. You need a framework that guides the way you think, the standards you live by, and the actions you take every day. Jim Rohn believed that a successful life is never built randomly. It is built intentionally through layers of discipline, and those layers can be understood through a simple 3-level framework. The first level is your personal philosophy. The second level is your standards and daily habits. The third level is your action plan and the way you measure progress. When these three levels align, progress becomes almost inevitable. But when even one of these levels is weak, everything else begins to collapse. Level 1, personal philosophy. Everything begins with philosophy. Not tactics, not strategy, philosophy. Your philosophy is the lens through which you interpret every event in your life. It determines whether you see challenges as obstacles or opportunities. It determines whether setbacks make you quit or make you stronger. Jim Rohn often explained that the biggest transformation in his own life began when he changed the way he interpreted responsibility. When he was younger, he believed that his results were mostly determined by external factors: the company he worked for, the pay structure, the economy. But one day his mentor told him something that completely changed his perspective. He said, if you want things to get better, you have to get better. That idea seems simple, but it carries enormous power because it shifts the focus from the outside world to the inside world. Instead of asking why circumstances are difficult, you begin asking how you can grow stronger. A strong philosophy includes a few key principles. First, focus on what you can control: your discipline, your effort, your learning, and your response to challenges. These are always within your power. Second, detach from immediate outcomes. Results often take time. If you become emotionally dependent on quick results, you will lose patience before the process has time to work. Third, trust the process of growth. Life rewards those who continue improving themselves, even when the rewards are not immediately visible. When your philosophy is built around these ideas, frustration begins to lose its grip on you, because your progress is no longer measured only by outcomes. It is measured by the person you are becoming. Level 2, standards and daily habits. Once philosophy is clear, the next layer becomes your standards. Your standards determine the quality of your daily behavior. They define what you accept from yourself and what you refuse to tolerate. Many people believe success comes from occasional bursts of inspiration. But Jim Rohn emphasized something very different. Success comes from small disciplines practiced consistently over time. That means the most powerful forces shaping your life are not dramatic decisions. They are the quiet habits repeated every day. How you manage your time, how you respond to difficulty, how you treat commitments, how you develop your skills. These small actions seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound into powerful results. Think of discipline like planting seeds. Each habit you practice is another seed placed into the soil of your future. At first, the field looks unchanged, but beneath the surface, something is happening. The seeds are taking root. Eventually, the harvest appears. The problem is that most people quit before the harvest arrives. They abandon their habits because the results are not immediate. But the people who succeed understand something important. Consistency always wins over intensity. A strong standard means you show up even when motivation fades. You continue learning when progress feels slow. You keep improving even when no one is watching. And over time, these habits reshape your entire trajectory. Level 3, action plans and measured progress. The final level of the framework is action. Philosophy and discipline create the foundation, but without action, they remain ideas. However, the key is not random action. The key is aligned action. Aligned action means your daily work reflects your philosophy and standards. Your actions move you steadily toward growth rather than simply reacting to pressure or circumstances. Jim Rohn often reminded people that progress should be measured regularly, not to create pressure, but to create awareness. When you measure your progress, you begin to see patterns. You begin to understand what works and what needs improvement. This might mean reviewing your goals each week, tracking your habits, reflecting on your progress each month. These small evaluations allow you to adjust your direction before small problems become large ones. But the most important part of this level is patience. Many people take action for a short period and then become discouraged when results are not immediate, but growth rarely happens overnight. Just like the farmer must allow the crops time to grow, you must allow your efforts time to compound. The real power of this three-level framework is that it creates stability. Your philosophy gives you clarity. Your habits give you consistency. Your actions give you progress. And when these three levels are aligned, life begins to move in a very different direction. Instead of constantly chasing success, you begin building the structure that naturally produces it. Understanding principles is powerful, but understanding alone is never enough. Many people read inspiring ideas, feel motivated for a moment, and then slowly return to their old patterns. Jim Rohn often reminded his audience that knowledge without action changes nothing. The true difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck is implementation. Implementation means translating philosophy into daily behavior. It means turning ideas into habits that quietly shape the direction of your life. Without this step, even the most powerful philosophy remains just an interesting thought. The first step of implementation is identifying what is actually within your control. This may sound simple, but it changes the way you approach almost every situation in life. Instead of spending energy worrying about outcomes, timing, or the behavior of other people, you redirect your focus toward the few things that are entirely yours to manage. Your effort, your discipline, your preparation, your response to obstacles. When you begin focusing your energy on these areas, your mental clarity improves immediately. You stop feeling pulled in dozens of different directions because your attention becomes concentrated on actions you can influence. The second step is building daily disciplines that reinforce your philosophy. Jim Rohn explained that success is not the result of a few major breakthroughs. It is the result of small disciplines practiced every day. That means your growth is determined less by what you do occasionally and more by what you do consistently. For example, you might dedicate time every day to learning something that strengthens your skills. You might develop the habit of reviewing your goals regularly so that your actions stay aligned with your direction. You might choose to respond calmly to setbacks rather than reacting emotionally. These behaviors may appear small, but over time they begin to reshape the way you think and operate. Your confidence grows because you know you are consistently investing in your own development. The third step is learning to detach emotionally from immediate results. This does not mean you stop caring about your goals. It means you stop allowing short-term outcomes to control your mindset. Many people lose momentum because they expect visible progress too quickly. When progress feels slow, they begin to doubt the process. But Jim Rohn emphasized that patience is an essential part of growth. Just like seeds planted in a field require time before they appear above the surface, personal development also requires time before the results become visible. If you remain disciplined during that invisible stage, the results eventually arrive. Another important part of implementation is regular reflection. Successful people take time to evaluate their progress. They ask themselves questions such as whether their daily habits align with their goals. They examine what worked well during the week and what needs adjustment. This process is not about criticizing yourself. It is about staying aware of the direction you are moving in. Small adjustments made consistently can prevent large problems later on. Finally, implementation requires persistence. There will be days when progress feels slow. There will be moments when challenges appear larger than expected. But those moments are part of the process. Jim Rohn often said that discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen your future. Every time you follow through on a commitment to yourself, you reinforce the kind of person you are becoming. Over time, these decisions accumulate. They quietly build momentum, and eventually you reach a point where the progress that once felt distant begins to appear in your life. Implementation is not dramatic. It is not loud. Most of the time, it is quiet and repetitive. But within those quiet repetitions lies the power that transforms philosophy into reality. When you step back and look at everything we have discussed, a clear pattern begins to emerge. The biggest transformation in a person's life rarely comes from a single event. It does not come from luck, and it does not come from sudden breakthroughs that appear overnight. Real transformation comes from something far quieter and far more powerful. It comes from a shift in philosophy. Most people spend their lives trying to control outcomes. They chase opportunities. They chase recognition. They chase success as if it were something that can be forced into existence. But the more they chase, the more exhausted they become. They mistake pressure for progress and urgency for growth. Jim Rohn taught something very different. He reminded people that success is not something you pursue directly. Success is something you attract by the person you become. That idea alone changes the entire direction of your effort. Instead of spending your energy trying to control every result, you begin focusing on the one area where your power is absolute: yourself, your philosophy, your discipline, your habits, your response to challenges. When those elements begin to strengthen, life slowly begins to respond differently. Opportunities appear where you once saw obstacles. Confidence grows where uncertainty once lived. Progress becomes visible, not because you forced it, but because you built the foundation that allows it to happen. This is why the framework we discussed matters so much. A strong philosophy gives you clarity about what truly matters. Clear standards and daily habits give you consistency in your actions. And aligned action allows that consistency to turn into steady progress over time. When these elements work together, something interesting begins to happen. You stop feeling like life is a constant struggle. You stop feeling like you must control every outcome in order to succeed. Instead, you begin moving through life with calm confidence. You know that as long as you continue improving yourself, the results will eventually follow. This does not mean life becomes easy. Challenges will still appear. Setbacks will still happen. But your relationship with those challenges changes. They no longer feel like threats to your future. They become opportunities to strengthen the philosophy you live by. Jim Rohn often said that if you change your philosophy, you change your life. Not because circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because the way you interpret and respond to those circumstances becomes stronger. So the real question is not whether the world will cooperate with your plans. The real question is whether you are willing to become the kind of person who can create progress regardless of the circumstances. And if you are willing to do that, then the path forward becomes much simpler. Focus on your philosophy. Strengthen your discipline. Take consistent action. Let the results follow in their own time. Because in the end, the true power to change your life was never outside of you. It was always within you.